Patient stories provide a valuable insight into the challenges faced and the coping strategies employed by people living with CLL. And they can bring comfort and nurture a feeling that you are not alone to those of us living with CLL and our families. However, the views expressed are those of the storyteller and do not reflect the views of CLL support. And CLL support does not have any editorial control over the contents of each patient's story. And we may not necessarily have prior knowledge of the contents of a patient's story. They reflect the lived-in experience of those who choose to share their story, and they are personal to each individual and their circumstances.
So, my name's Bethan Corley, and I think my last slide in 2019 was of me with this little girl as a baby, and I'm not going to get upset, but she has been my joy and my best friend over the years. And I'm sorry I'm getting upset, but she's been great. She's got me through many a time. She always wanted my plaster after treatment, and she stored them and looked after them. But she's been amazing. So my name's Bethan, and I was really glad to be asked, because it's 10 years since diagnosis, and I had a big birthday on Saturday, and I was 60. So I celebrated. So I felt like there was a lot to celebrate. So I wanted to do this because 10 years down the line, 10 years ago, I was thinking, will I be here? What does the future hold? You know, what happens? So really, a bit like Liam, you have to have a positive mindset and think, right, live life. You know, don't look too far ahead. And I always use that analogy as well. Hit by a bus, I could walk out of here and get hit by a bus. You know, enjoy every moment. So this was 10 years ago. John wanted the slides in last Monday, and I had lovely pictures from the weekend. So this is me 10 years younger, at 50. This wasn't a great day. I was overwhelmed by the diagnosis. I'd been diagnosed with CLL at the age of 49 in the summer, before my birthday in the November. So in the November, I was still getting used to it. But I'm going to go back a little bit about me. I live in Sunderland, and I know a lot of you are from Newcastle here. My husband is a Sunderland supporter, but I am not from Sunderland originally, so I don't really care. But, but this is where we live. It's a beautiful place. I absolutely love it. This is my family. I've got 3 boys. They've got 3 amazing wives, and now, 4 years on from 2019, I have 4 beautiful grandchildren. So Rose is the oldest, then Fern is her sister, Lily is my youngest son's daughter, and then Asa was one just a few weeks ago. And it's just a joy to be around them. So this is all of us celebrating Asa's birthday, and in the lead up to my 60th. So we were all getting together and planning, and it was good fun. So a bit of a recap on my diagnosis. I'd been under quite a lot of stress. I was a teacher, so I decided to move jobs and step down from a role of responsibility. And this new job was amazing. I loved it. It was really, I'm going to say, easy, because I didn't have a lot of responsibility. But I started with a sore throat, severe. I was typing on the computer for the kids. Can you give the books out? You know, can you line up for assembly? I just couldn't speak. But I didn't feel overly ill. But my head sent me to the GP, said, you've got to go, you can't carry on like this. And I always say, I wish I'd never gone for that appointment, because that appointment changed absolutely everything. A very good GP recognised straight away that I had big lymph nodes, glands up. And I was just saying I thought it was glandular fever, because I'd had glandular fever in the past as a child, and it felt like that. So she did bloods, gave me some antibiotics to pacify me, and then I went back to work. 10 days later, she called me in just to check how I was doing. I said I was fine, I was much better. And she said, I've referred you to haematology. Your bloods have come back, there's some anomalies there, we need you to go, and your appointment will be this week. So that was a Wednesday. I got home, the appointment was on the doorstep, and I went on the Friday. And that changed everything. I hated it there. I went up for the appointment and I thought, oh, I hate this place. It's horrible. It's full of ill people. I don't belong here. Anyway, you know, straight away, bloods weren't great, lymph nodes everywhere, apparently, neck, axilla, under my, well, in my abdomen, in my groin, and I was a bit shocked. So, you know, a long summer of tests, you know, fine needle biopsies, CT scans, referrals to ENT, back to haematology, diagnosed with CLL. I knew a little bit about it because I had an aunt with CLL, and she was still living at the time, and she'd been on a number of treatment plans. Watch and wait, first time round, I struggled with it. I just could not get my head around it. I was like, why aren't they treating me? And other people would say the same. Why aren't you being treated? And in that time, I felt like they were waiting for me to be ill enough to warrant the treatment, which is what they were doing. And I became really unwell. I was struggling at school. I was struggling mentally, emotionally. So in 2016, when things became crisis point with huge swellings in my neck, my face, I couldn't move my neck, I had pain in my groin because of the lymph nodes, I went into treatment. And I had FCR, so fludarabine, cyclophosphamide, and a rituximab injection. I always say to people, now looking back, it was manageable, but at the time, it felt like chemotherapy, which is what it was. Spent a couple of evenings in casualty while they sorted out nausea. I was neutropenic throughout the whole time. But things went to plan, and I had my infusion every month for 6 months, and I completed it in December 16, which is what I wanted to do, because I wanted to start a new year with a clear slate. So I missed weddings, I missed events, and that was great. It was really to be celebrated. So I went back to work, and I enjoyed remission. I was over the moon to be back at work. I was like Tigger on speed, you know, and nothing could knock me down. I did go back part-time. I began to look after Rose just one day a week, which was lovely. So I had that lovely work-life balance. And I began to feel healthier. But it's always there in the back of your mind, isn't it? And that's how I felt. There wasn't a day goes by. And I don't think there is a day goes by that I don't acknowledge it. So I was then asked to speak at the Newcastle conference in 2019. Which was great, and I was feeling really well. I was in remission, and I felt like I had quite a story. I've missed out quite a lot of details there, because after 2019, it's been another journey. So COVID hit, and shielding. So I walked into school. I had the head at the door saying, you can't come in. HR have been on the phone. You've got CLL. You've got to go home. Well, I was furious. I was like, I'll be fine. I said, no, you can't. So I didn't take it well. I did teach from home during COVID. So that was motivating, that was good. You saw the kids every day. You know, it was quite pleasant. We walked along our seafront. That's why I put the photographs on. You know, didn't put on too much weight. So it was okay, but I didn't take it that well because I felt like I'd done a little lockdown when I had FCR. And now I was doing another lockdown. So then we returned to life, and relapse came out of the blue. So when we got back to school properly, I was still part-time, and we'd got another grandchild, so I had that lovely work-life balance. Redundancies happened at school, and all the part-time teachers were on the cards. So I had a meeting with HR, and that day I was in the staff room and I just had a weird feeling in my neck and I felt a lump. And you know when you know, you think, oh, you know, I can't even say the word of what was going through my head. So I then went to a HR meeting while they talked about the situation, and I did not hear a word. I was just like, I want to feel my neck, I want to feel my neck. Is it there? Is it there? Did I imagine it? And I wanted to stop the person who was speaking and go, stop, I've got more important things going on. So I sort of sat on my hands. So it all ended. I was being made redundant, hard luck. The first thing I did was go up to the loo, felt my neck, and I was like, that is a lump. and I didn't know what to do because I really didn't want to acknowledge it. So I kept it to myself, really. I knew I had an appointment. This was in the May. I had an appointment coming up in the October, so I thought, oh, I'll just bide my time. It's probably going to be all right. But during that time, they were like pop, 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 pop under my arm. I was like, oh, dear me. I was feeling a bit more fatigued, and I hadn't said anything to anyone. So I went up to haematology for my appointment in October on my own. It was still, only, they were trying to be safe in the chemo unit. And as soon as I got there, I just said, I think I'm relapsing. And my consultant said, I totally agree with you. And I was just so upset and angry because I thought, I've done one lot. I'm doing, one lot of lockdown. Now and then another one in COVID. And now what are we heading to again? And I was feeling really well. Which was the surprise, but my blood picture was very different to first time round. First time round in diagnosis, it was very much lymph nodes. This time round, my blood picture was changing quite dramatically. So this was the October. By the April, my platelets were down to 32. My HB was down to 70. So they started talking about treatment. I was dragging myself around. I was leaning against a wall teaching or knocking kids off chairs to say, can I sit on your chair for a minute? And I really was struggling. And I hadn't told anyone in the school I was teaching in. I had been made redundant. I was doing supply. So I just felt like it was a very different presentation, and I didn't think I was that ill. But when I was sort of starting to pass out and feel quite faint, we knew we had to do something. So I had a CT scan, and it was a shocker. My consultant rang me at home and said, we can't start your treatment because we think you might have lung cancer. Your CT scan has thrown up all these lung nodules and we don't know what they are. But I'd had a CT 6 months previously and it had been absolutely clear in my lungs, but this time it was shocking. So I'm now under a chest team. So it got to the stage, I was seeing my specialist nurse. This is Faye, who I don't know what I'd do without her. She was like, what do we do? We've got to treat you because you're becoming really ill, but we need to find out whether we need to treat this lung issue first. But to tell you the truth, I had to start the treatment for the CLL first because I was going downhill rapidly. So I had a few blood transfusions and I started on rituximab and venetoclax. So I did a ramp up with the venetoclax, had my first infusion, and things got on track pretty quickly, and my blood started to gain some momentum in the right direction. Then I went through tests of a CT-guided biopsy, which showed up nothing. Then they took me into the was it the RVI, Dave? The RVI, and I was under the cardiothoracic team there, had my chest opened and a lung wedge biopsy. They call it a lung wedge biopsy, they shouldn't. They should rename it as something barbaric, as in open your chest and remove half your lung. And that took a lot of recovering from, but found absolutely nothing. So they rang me to say it's not lung cancer, and I didn't think it was. I've never smoked, I've never had any breathing problems. So that was another complication that I could have done without. So I've had to park that. I'm monitored regularly. They're still there. Don't know what it is. I think COVID, but they don't. So, yeah, that's that. So 2 years of treatment went by. I found it really isolating, really lonely. Husband at work, all my friends in education, my boys at work. So you have to be creative. So I started sewing, I started a few bits and pieces in the house. But when you've got no immune system or a very low immune system, you've got to be really careful. So I was good. I did a lot of Netflix as well and a bit of cooking and, got through it, really. But I just want to acknowledge really our specialist nurses. So this is Faye, who's my specialist nurse in Sunderland. These two girls are called Jill and they're both called Kate. They were often my chemo nurses, first time round and second time round. And they're just brilliant. And mental health wise, I was really struggling with the tablets because I'd been so sick with FCR that the thought of taking any tablets I was struggling with. So the best thing that Faye said to me was, this is the good stuff, getting rid of the bad. Go somewhere nice, look at something nice and say, this is the good stuff, getting rid of the bad. And down those tablets would go, and I was never sick again from that moment. So a bit of CBT was absolutely brilliant. And they are just amazing. It was sort of a pleasure to go up there. But the impact of treatment affects your life, and it affects your social life, your career, your finances, your relationships, your mental health. And I think you have to acknowledge that as well. You know, it's a struggle for families when someone is diagnosed with a long-term illness, because you can't just return back to normal life. I had a lovely job lined up this summer, 0.5 in a school every morning, teaching year 6. Told my consultant, and basically he told me I couldn't. My immune system is really poor, and he was like, you can't. I've had COVID 7 times. So, you know, obviously the impact of that isn't great either. Mental health wise, I think just dealing with treatment, dealing with relapse treatment, then you finish treatment and you feel like you're treading water, and I found that really hard. I found on treatment I was quite resilient and resourceful. Then as soon as it finished, I had a bit of a crisis, and currently I am having some counselling, which is really helpful. It's good to talk and just offload. So, you know, seek help if you need it, and don't be scared to seek help. And I think I've just had to be very accepting. Turning 60 for me has been a bit of a game changer, because I think I don't feel so much of a failure not going back to work. So I'm thinking, I'm 60, lots of people retire. I'm still doing some work. I do some writing for an education company and I tutor, but I felt a failure. But I'm not going to anymore, because I'm 60 and I'm entitled to go out for coffee on a Wednesday, you know. So that's what I'm going to do. So, yeah, I learned a lot about myself. It was a long 2 years, and now it's just moving on and finding a new normal, being 60. And as John knows, I will flirt with anybody, even on the phone. I had a bit of a conversation with John. So it's just, you know, enjoying life, as Liam said, and making the most of it. I don't know what will happen. I don't know how long my remission will be. Pretty sure I'll have treatment again. But the treatment of venetoclax and rituximab was a walk in the park compared to FCR. So they're changing all the time. So, you know, it's wonderful, it's amazing. So thank you very much. I know I've waffled on. These are just some buddies I've made over the years, all with CLL. Meet them regularly, have fun, usually drink Prosecco. We've just been away with Elizabeth on the left here, my left. And yeah, that's life. Drink Prosecco and have CLL. Okay. Thank you very much.